Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of TILLY. I'm your host, Marissa Zeppieri Caruana. Many of you already know me as Lupus Chick, and I'm so excited to have you here. Tonight, we have Jordan Wysocki. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully I didn't butcher your last name.
No, that was better than my maiden name. So thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We are so excited. Jordan is an amazing lupus advocate that I met through Instagram, and she's got a neat story. I think especially those of you in the audience that maybe were diagnosed a little bit younger, or maybe have children that are diagnosed, in middle, high school, college years. I think that Jordan is just such an inspiration. You're going to love her story. So Jordan, I just kind of want to get started right away, if that's okay with you.
Oh, I'm ready. Let's go.
So you and I chatted a little bit before this, but tell us sort of, your high school, starting your college years of, I know you were an athlete, so you can share a little bit more about that, but when would you say was the first time that you really noticed that you weren't feeling right, and what were your symptoms?
So mine is a little unique. I feel like everyone kind of knew early on in their lives that like they might have had symptoms of lupus, but I never did. I literally woke up one morning and I was walking down the stairs and I called for my dad and I was like, Dad, something's wrong. I had like pain like deep in my joints. I knew it wasn't muscles because I've torn a bunch of muscles and I sprained a bunch of ankles and it just felt different. So I was 18 going into my freshman year of college, and I quickly went to like a bunch of different doctors and they told me I had lupus, and I was like, what in the world is lupus? So it flipped my world upside down, to say the least.
Absolutely. When you went to the doctors, what would you say was sort of that time frame of getting that diagnosis? Was it fairly quick?
It was, and I'm blessed for that because I know it's not that easy for people. People go years, sometimes decades without being diagnosed or being misdiagnosed, and I feel so bad for people. But I was very blessed to get diagnosed. My ANA levels were positive, and I had the infamous butterfly rash on my face, and just like the other symptoms of lupus, like swelling in my joints and like my fingers. So it was pretty obvious it was lupus to my rheumatologist.
Well, that's amazing that they actually started testing right away and you were able to get that diagnosis. So did you start on medication right away? I know that you went right into college and you were an athlete. So how did that share that first year of college? So obviously college in itself is such a major life change, right? For a young woman or a young man. You're going through so many different things and you're also an athlete. So it's a lot of pressure. And now you have this new diagnosis. So what was that first year like?
It was scary because it was like the week before I just met the coach and like signed this like my scholarship and my letter of intent to play at a D2 college. And with that, you get an athletic scholarship. So I was so scared to tell my coach and my teammates because I was like, am I going to lose my scholarship? Am I not going to be able to play? I was even thinking of like my health. I'm like, I just want to make sure like my college is going to be paid for and blah, 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 blah. But it was really scary at first. And I did have a talk with my coach and the athletic trainers, and everyone was very supportive. And my doctor started pumping me with prednisone, obviously. So like, sometimes when you take prednisone, you kind of feel like you're on top of the world at first. Like I didn't have
Yeah.
much pain, and I was kind of masking a lot of my symptoms, but um, I did not cope well with that, and I just was mainly on prednisone and Plaquenil to help my symptoms.
Yeah, those are definitely typically the first line drugs, and for some people they do wonders. Plaquenil was amazing for me for the first 10 years. So luckily we have some drugs, even though they are not without side effects or different challenges. I do know that I've seen some pictures of you on Instagram when you were on, I'm assuming high levels of prednisone, and I think you lost a lot of your hair. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was probably the same time I was diagnosed with lupus nephritis. So it was like 2012, 2013. I was diagnosed originally in 2011. And I was like, after I went through a blood clot, and all of a sudden I was taking Cellcept and my hair started falling out. And, as a woman, it's really difficult going through that. And it started thinning so badly. I remember like showering, and after I get out of the shower, I just saw like all these bare patches on my head. But I was like the good side of it was I tried a lot of fun hairstyles, and I'm blessed that it grew back, but I know it's not always the case for everyone. So like I do appreciate my hair so much, and I love her and I take care of her very well. But I mean, it could happen again. You can't predict it. So
Yeah, that is, that's the one thing with this disease, just the disease itself, and then also the medication. I've had I think 3 seasons where I lost all my hair pretty much. So, and I've had lupus for 20 years. So it depends. It depends what medication you're on. But so let me ask you a question. You're in college, you're sounds like you're 2 or 3 years in college, and you get diagnosed now with lupus nephritis. Did you notice like that your health was sort of changing, or you were getting new symptoms, or was that something that you were completely surprised about?
I was completely surprised about it. I was like, what? Like, I felt like normal for my lupus symptoms, like nothing, no other additional symptoms, I guess you could say. But those amazing blood tests and urinalysis showed like protein in my urine, and the creatinine ratios were off. So they started taking me, or they recommended me to a nephrologist, and then I've been to a nephrologist ever since. But since that original diagnosis of lupus nephritis, I have experienced other symptoms, like since those years have gone on, like severe edema, like I had my stomach drained because it was so swollen, and just
Wow.
very bad pitting edema for like a couple of years at least.
Wow. So all of this happened and you were quite young. So as a lupus advocate online, and obviously when you meet people, what would you say to young men or women that are in the middle of either getting diagnosed or just diagnosed and sort of in this new world of school, the pressure of school? Do you tell your friends, do you tell your teachers? Like there's so many different emotions. Like what would you say to those different things?
It's so obviously it's very situational. Like what I always say, obviously you need like a really good, strong support system, like duh, but not everyone's always blessed with that. Like I had an amazing advisor in college. I went to a very small college, and she was so supportive of my lupus and like taking time off. And my biggest tip would probably be say no to more things. Like you don't need to go to that party. You don't need to go out at night. Like I was downtown Buffalo every night because I had to, because all my teammates were. But looking back, like that was probably one of the worst decisions ever, because the next morning I was probably pounding extra prednisone. Like I should not have been. Like don't do that. But I would definitely recommend like saying no. Don't put so much on your plate. Like it's so easy to try to like be like, well, I'm 20, I'm 19, I should be doing this. I got to keep up with everyone else. But like you don't. Like go at your own pace and like listen to your body.
Right. I think, whether you're 18 or, you're in your 30s or 40s, you eventually start to learn like, okay, I have this much energy and I either have to work or I need to get through my classes. I have to get to doctor's appointments, and I would like to go out with my friends maybe on Friday night or Saturday night or whatnot. So I know for the rest of the week, I pretty much have to stay home, even though I don't want to. So I think you eventually learn that sort of give and take.
Yes.
Otherwise, like you said, I mean, because I did it too. I was also diagnosed when I was in college. You really push your body, and then you pay for it. You pay for it after. So even today, like when you've had lupus for a while, if you do something all day long, maybe you don't give yourself a gap, you still pay for it in some way, I feel like.
Yeah, and I still struggle with this, honestly, saying like, oh, like I can't be out in the sun, and people are like, oh, I can't either. I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like I have lupus. Like I've told you this. Like it's not a new thing, but like, I just kind of pull back a little bit. But not everyone's gonna understand, even though if they've been in your life, this whole journey with you. So just like have some patience with people, and just walk away from them. But as long as it feels good for you, that's all that really matters at the end of the day.
Absolutely. When did you first notice? I'd say there's about 50% of people I talk to that either are severely triggered by the sun, like I am, that I literally moved across the country away from it. Or they are like out on the beach, just, having a grand old time. It doesn't affect them at all, which blows my mind. But when was the first time you noticed like, okay, I'm in the sun and something's not right?
It was during preseason training for basketball. We were doing sprints outside, like on campus, like on like a street, and I'm like, it's the middle of the summer, and I'm dying more than usual. And like I just noticed the flash, like, or the rash on my face, and I posted pictures on it, and that's like how my face would look after like every day. And I used like Dermablend makeup, which is like the best makeup to cover up the butterfly rash. And I
Yeah.
used to use that like every day. Like, I caked it on because I was single at the time. I was like, I don't want anyone looking at my face. So definitely during that like same time I was diagnosed, I started noticing symptoms right away when I was in the sun.
Well, Dermablend is amazing. I do have to admit.
Yeah, it's
I feel
not
like
cheap
that stuff
either.
covers anything.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's worth the money, and I used that a lot during those first couple years of the rash. So
So let's talk about that for a second. Being a young woman, you're in college, you're absolutely gorgeous, you're dating. What was that like? When you met people, did you tell them you had lupus? Did you wait? Did you kind of wait to see how it was going?
like, oh God, I felt like it was such a small campus that everyone kind of knew. And especially after I had the blood clot, like everyone knew that. But my freshman year, I was a wild thing. I was a wild child, and I didn't really bring it up. I didn't really date. I mean, I hung out with some guys, but I didn't meet my husband now until my sophomore year of college. So thank God he kind of reeled me back in, because I think I just kind of went crazy after I got diagnosed. So don't do that, people.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, you told me a little bit about him before, but he sounds like a great guy. I'm curious. So now with your family, you obviously have a really good support. What How did your parents handle this when you were younger and you were going through the diagnosis process?
My dad was in complete denial. He's like, could you still play basketball? I'm like, dude, like, do you know what lupus is, Dad? Like, go look it up. But my mom was more like, okay, what can we do holistically to cure this? She's like, I would eat horse poop if it could cure me. So she's like, Jordan, why aren't you taking your health seriously? She took me to acupuncture, all these like Chinese herbal medicine doctors. I did like the infrared saunas and like the salt rising baths, and I'm super for that. But when I was 18, 19, I'm like, I don't want to do this. Now I do. I
Right.
have a juicer now, and I'm like, juice celery, like drink wheatgrass. And now I'm like a big advocate for that. But I do believe there's a balance of like Western medicine and holistic approaches. So, but my mom was like huge supporter of me and like my health and healing. So she's wonderful.
Good.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Good to have a good mom.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, it is a delicate balance. And I remember being first diagnosed and just thinking, great, what's the pill that you can give me to get rid of this? It's just like, let's wrap this up so I
Yeah.
can move on.
Yeah.
But then I think over time you learn, okay, which, medicines you might have to tweak them, what works for you. But then you can start adding in these other things, whether it's things like acupuncture, or infrared or massage, or maybe functional medicine, which I'm a huge believer in, juicing,
Yeah.
figuring out what your food allergies and sensitivities are. A lot of lupus patients and autoimmune patients have a very high percentage of sensitivities and allergies. So I think that's really important too. But yeah, when you're younger, it's not the first thing on your mind. It's,
Right.
okay, well, how do we fix this so I can continue on with my life,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, exactly. I did that. Obviously looking back, like you're like, damn it, like I wish I would have done that when I was diagnosed, because maybe I wouldn't be where I am today. But I try to tell myself that everything happens for a reason. And now I think I'm taking my health a lot more seriously for a 28-year-old. And I know there's a lot of girls my age that, are still kind of doing whatever, but not that I don't have fun every now and then, but it's definitely not like how it was when I was 18.
Right. Well, you do look like you have fun though on your Instagram reels. I always get a good laugh out of them.
Yeah,
So
I
let's talk
try.
about life now at 28 years old. I have a couple questions. Like one, because we both live in upstate New York, do you tend to feel better in the colder weather? Do you feel like some of your symptoms lessen?
I It's so funny because I think it's more like a melatonin thing, because or not melatonin, I don't know, serotonin, or what is it, like when you feel like a high from something.
Yeah.
Like I love the fall and winter seasons, so like I'm just always happy, but I feel like I have felt better during those seasons. But people have asked me that before. My dad always asked me that, but to me, it hasn't affected me too much, like negatively or positively. My fatigue and my inflammation has been pretty low. It's been just affecting my kidneys for like the past 6 years, so thank God for that. But I haven't felt too much inflammation. Does it affect you negatively or positively?
I left South Florida because the heat and the sun were really some of my biggest triggers. I was stuck in the house every day till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And then I happened to go away on vacation for about 6 weeks. Oh, that was odd. Hold on a sec. That's never happened before. Sorry about that.
No, you're okay.
Um, for about 6 weeks, I went away and I noticed, and it was in the middle of winter, and I noticed I had like no fevers. I almost had no pain, and I didn't need as much medication. And I thought if I can replicate that, then that's what I want to do. Because for me, the sun and the heat were awful.
Mhm.
And then we moved. We moved literally, up here by close to the Canadian border. So, and I love it. I feel amazing in the cold weather. But I know a lot of people that are just the opposite. They have more joint pain and they feel worse. So I think it's such an individual thing when it comes to weather and temperature.
It is. It really is. But it is interesting hearing everyone's different effects of it. So
Yeah, I mean, so that's why, and I tell people, they say no two cases of lupus are alike. And I really have never met one person that's exactly, goes through the exact same things that I do. There's such a range. But I think, you're such an amazing inspiration. And I feel like people can see, you made it through college, you were an athlete, like you didn't have to give that up, but obviously there were challenges. But now you're actually going for your master's online, which is incredible. So congratulations on that.
thank you so much.
Yeah. What would you say to, maybe a young man or woman that right now, is sort of having some health challenges and maybe they are thinking about going back to school online. Maybe they're sort of stuck in, their home, or they just have different goals and they're not quite sure, am I going to be able to accomplish these?
I would, if they want to go to school, I would say do it at your own pace, just like everything else you should do when you have lupus. When I first started this program, I was in person, I was doing 2 classes at a time and working full time, and it was just too much. And even now with one class, sometimes obviously all professors are different. So each term it's a different professor and they each have like different demands and it can still be stressful, but I have good little outlets. Like I'll go for walks or I'll even take days off to do my homework assignments. I mean, I have a great job like that where I can take days and get some school work done. But like if it's too much for you and you're stressing out and worrying that much about school, maybe it's just not the right time. Because I don't think like work should ever be like your life unless it's something like you're very passionate about, like, lupus, like this is something I'm passionate about. But like I work in higher ed and yes, I'm passionate about it, but I'm not going to be like up to like the late nights, like stressing about things because, it's not life or death.
Right. I agree with that. Like, and as far as goal setting or maybe thinking, I have this diagnosis, am I going to be able to do all the things that I ever wanted to do? What is my life going to look like, aside from school, just in general? Will I be able to get these things done that I really want to get done? What would you say to someone that is sort of in this area of, maybe fearful or they feel like they're losing hope?
It's so common to get in those ruts. I do that all the time. But like, like, am I going to be pregnant one day? Like, is this going to happen? Like, what if I have edema again? But those are never okay. Like I mean, you could like set maybe 10 minutes out of the day and like acknowledge those feelings and then that's it. Like, don't let it take over your life or like the rest of your day. But big thing I would tell people is to get professional help from a therapist. I waited for 10 years to finally go to one, and it's been the best thing I've ever done, the best doctor I've ever been to. And I was like, man, I told my husband this today. I was like, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago. Like someone just shook me and been like, this is okay to go to a therapist. Like, we're not going to think of you like less than, because there's such a stigmatism even 10 years ago of going to therapy, but it has significantly changed my life.
Yes, it is. Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought that up. And I agree with you 1,000%. I also waited a very long time. And I think just when you go through, first of all, when you're sick, and then maybe you go through this long period where they can't figure out, what the diagnosis is. And then it's okay, you have to come to terms now with this diagnosis. You don't feel well. You're on all this new medication. You're going through procedures. That in itself causes so much stress and anxiety and trauma, right?
Yeah.
And then if we're not talking to someone about it, like it's still all there. So whether you go to a counselor or therapist 5 years later or 10 years later, like you still have to work through all of these
Yeah.
things. It's so important because there are just those things alone are things to heal from so that you can sort of move past it, right? You've just like held in a lot of different emotions and experiences.
Yeah.
Thank God for technology and Zoom and that you could see therapists now online and it's so simple or on your phone. If you don't even want to see face to face, there's therapy apps that you can just text. Like it's incredible what is available today.
Yeah. I talk to him on the phone like every couple of weeks, and he gives me like sometimes little homework assignments or like recommends books to read. And it's nice. And like, yeah, we all have lupus or like we're struggling with autoimmune disease, but we still are people. We still go through other stuff too, like family problems, friend stuff, like work stuff, like normal daily stresses. And then you have to add all that lupus and health on top of that. Like we go through a lot every day. So talking to a therapist about everything else along with lupus is just, it's like a breath. It's like, oh, finally, I could just let it all out, and it's wonderful. I just love it.
Yeah. And it's a neutral party. It's not like you're dumping it all on a family member and then they're so stressed out because they just want to fix it, you know, and it's a neutral and you can just sort of openly share, which is, I think, a great thing. So,
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, it's been so amazing to interview you. And I know that people will definitely want to follow you. So tell us sort of all your social media platforms. Let us know the handles and how they can follow you.
I'm on Instagram at LupusNewYork. That's like my main lupus account. I also have like an online store where I sell lupus awareness apparel, just like some sweatshirts and t-shirts, and that is the Lupus Uniform on Instagram as well. But I also have the Etsy shop where I sell it at the Lupus Uniform on Etsy, and those are my three main media channels.
Perfect. And Lupus New York, is the New York spelled out?
Yes, it is. I was gonna do Lupus Buffalo, but then I kind of felt like am I calling me a buffalo? And I don't know if people would understand that I'm from Buffalo, so I just took New York. So
I think Lupus New York is good. I think it was a good choice.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being on this episode of Tilly. It was wonderful. It was good chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I hope we can meet up in person one day because we are like super close. Well, like 45 minutes probably. So I would love to meet in person. And I'm so happy we finally got to meet. And I'm so grateful that you asked me to be a part of this. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, good. Oh, absolutely. I'm excited we got to share your story. So for everyone that joined us, thank you for hanging out on this episode of Tilly. Tilly is brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of New England. So again, I appreciate you being here, Jordan. I hope everyone has a wonderful night and come back next week for the last episode of season 5. Everyone have a great night. Take care. Bye.